Hey, Simon.
Jim, how are you? How's everything in your world?
I am doing well. It's a great day. Start of the week after Halloween. Kids are slowly coming down off their sugar highs. I see
Oh,
you're wearing an interesting shirt. Something
I
just happened
am.
with the baseball
Yes,
sport.
the world of baseball is alive and well because the Dodgers have gone back to back with the World Series, which is phenomenal. Touch and go there for a minute, though. I'm not going to belabor that because I know that I've alienated 90% of those listening already by even saying two sentences about baseball. So I'm happy. I'm excited. My kids, though, are still on a ridiculous sugar high. The amount of candy that came into our house is absurd. I bought like 3 bags. I thought I've given away most of the candy in the house, but no, it is returned to us in like twice the quantity. So somewhere out there, someone has less candy, but it's not our house.
It's funny you mentioned like the candy and the trick or treating and the kids. My
Yeah.
kids went out, right? And they all came home with these big bags of candy. And I noticed something funny, right? My youngest daughter, she dumps her bag out and it's like almost all chocolate based candy.
Okay.
My middle son, he dumps his bag out and it's mostly like sugary hard candy.
Okay.
And my oldest daughter, she dumps hers out and it's like mostly gummy stuff, like gummy bears, gummy worms, gummy things.
Yeah.
And I thought, it turns out that was a paranormal distribution of candy.
But
Okay, that's
hey.
and that's the and that's the best I
I,
can
I'm
do.
I'm actually interested because what did they do differently when they approached people getting the candy? Did they were asking different questions? Like, was it printed on their face? Like, I need gummy bears.
Well, I lied. I embellished. They didn't really have that distribution of candy. I just was trying to torture the story to make a bad.
No,
My,
it's a good
my
story.
kids literally did though. Like they combine them and then they have a takeaway and they all basically have selected. My son likes gummies. My daughter likes chocolate. And it was interesting at the end. And then I tried to make a histogram of the types of candy, but they kept taking them away as I was making it. So
Yeah,
I know, right? Like who does that? I'm like, oh, I'd love to torture you for 30 minutes while I organize your candy.
So we finally found a good use case for a live dashboard.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. There you go. Exactly.
So before we get too far into the candy discussion, today we have not a trick, but a treat. A special treat. We have not one, but two seasoned experts in the experimentation space to help us understand our normal and paranormal distributions. Kelly Wortham is the founder and moderator of the Test and Learn community, a global community of more than 2,000 experimentation and analytics practitioners. She previously served as the Senior Director of Research and Experimentation for Search Discovery before founding Forward Digital in 2023, offering decision science consulting and training services. And as if that wasn't enough, she started a conference, Experimentation Island, kicked off at the beginning of this year and will be happening again in just a few short months. I think Ton is pointing up to a shirt, or what is that?
Yeah.
The shirt.
It's the shirt from this year's event. Yeah.
Perfect. All
very
right.
cool.
With more than 25 years of experience in digital and offline testing, analytics, research, and optimization across both consulting and client-side roles, she's at the forefront of experimentation and decision science. Another fun detail, her very first foray into experimentation was at Circuit City, for those of us old enough to remember that. Lovely franchise. She was a forecast analyst turned email marketing tester, and one of her early tests featured the subject line, "Deja vu, Black Friday is back," which is perfect timing for this time of year. And joining Kelly is her partner in crime, Ton Wesseling. Ton started building websites in the late 90s. That's 1990s. And was analyzing server log files where most of us were still watching Saturday morning cartoons. He's an experimentation coach with more than 20 years of decision science experience, having founded or co-founded 4 different companies in the experimentation space. He also founded the conference known as Conversion Hotel, which is now in its 12th year, and the Experimentation Culture Awards. Ton is a frequent keynote speaker at events like Experimentation Elite, Super Week, Growth Marketing Summit, and many more. And if you've ever found yourself looking for a test calculator to see if your results are significant, there's a very good chance you've benefited from Ton's calculators on abtestguide.com. Welcome to the show, Kelly and Ton.
Yay. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we need an applause. We need an applause board thing there to, everyone's hyped. Yeah, we're hyped. How are you both?
Lovely. Thank you.
Excellent.
Amazing. It's always fun to
Alrighty.
be in a part, especially with 4. It's like, where do I look? It's like, this is going to be looking forward to this.
It is. It's like a bit of a Brady Bunch situation. Not quite even Brady Bunch, just 4 people, but we need like 9 people and like a housekeeper in the middle or something. Anyway, speaking of shows, though, when I heard the first time I heard Experimentation Island, and maybe it's just because I've been awash by the culture of reality TV shows, I thought it was a reality TV show akin to Love Island. What is Experimentation Island? Do you actually go to an island? Do you give, I don't know, you give out some tickets that are real and some tickets that aren't just to see what will happen? I don't know. What is this?
It's a great question. So Experimentation Island was actually founded because I had been wanting to run a conference for a while, and I was at Super Week with Tone, and I told Tone that I wanted to run a TLC conference, and Tone told me that his conference, the conference known as Conversion Hotel, sells out every year, and he wanted to grow Conversion Hotel, and he was thinking of bringing it to the US. And so our idea was, well, Tone's idea was, how about Kelly, you come to Conversion Hotel, because I'd never been, see what it's like. And if you like the format, we could partner and bring Conversion Hotel to the US. So Experimentation Island is the conference known as Conversion Hotel in the US.
Okay. So it's Conversion Hotel goes abroad, traveling in a like a Kontiki type of gathering. It's all. Sorry.
It's Conversion Hotel is actually on an island.
Okay. So that is a requirement. How large of an island are we talking? Like, could it be hosted in New Zealand, for example?
No. These are small islands. If you're like a runner, like a good runner, not like me, but then you can run like the whole island. And the same for St. Simmons in the US. But this is about quality. We try to grow Conversion Hotel at some point in the number of attendees. So we hit it like 400 at some point. And then it was like, oh, this is like too big. You cannot meet everyone. It felt like a too big conference. We scaled down to max 250, but then it's so much fun to organize this event. So I was really happy meeting Kelly, being able to just copy the concepts and transfer to a different location, because it doesn't make sense to fly over the ocean every time for all the attendees. And also because tickets are limited and it's sold out. So it made sense to run a second one. But we gave it a different name. So the conference known as Experimentation Island, which was the title everyone wanted to give to the Dutch event here in Europe. But we said, we're going to keep this model for the US. So if you want to come to Experimentation Island, you have to go to the US.
Right. And you mentioned, Kelly, you mentioned the format that you attended when you attended Conversion. Is it a unique format? Is it single track? What makes it different from other conferences?
So all of us have attended Measure Camp.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So Measure Camp has this lovely unconference style. And so does Experimentation Island. All of us have attended a conference where you go to a keynote style single track. So does Experimentation Island. So we took the best of both worlds, and we have a single track keynote style that's 1/3 of the conference. We have a 1/3 of the conference that is unconference style. And then the rest of the conference, the remaining third, because this is over 3 days and 2 nights on an island, all inclusive. The rest of it is events and networking and, a 3-course seated dinner and, got to throw in some karaoke and maybe some bonfires on the beach, on the island. And so there's an ample opportunity in this retreat-like setting to really get to know folks,
Mm.
whether it's in the unconference or, to discuss what you learned from this amazing keynote that inspires the conversation over dinner or around the fire. Or maybe you're one of the runners that wants to, get up early in the morning and, head to the beach with a couple of other runners that didn't mind staying up till 4 a.m., doing, karaoke and then head to the beach. Hey, that's on you. But whatever, everybody's different and you get to know people and you have these amazing, deep conversations about stuff in the industry and everything else. So it's a very different retreat-like setting where you unplug, unwind, connect, collaborate, and learn a whole lot.
And is the experimentation? Yes,
Oh,
yes.
a standing ovation.
And it seems like Experimentation Island is also sort of capped at the number of attendees, similar to Conversion with. Do we say just the whole thing, or just?
No, you can say Conversion Hotel and Experimentation Island, but
okay.
they're both conference known as.
Known as, or known as, yes.
I'll take a small side track. The reason why it's called now the conference known as Experimentation and Conversion Hotel, in the beginning it was just Conversion Hotel. But then after year number 5, we had this identity crisis in our industry. Well, why are we calling this conversion rate optimization? That doesn't make sense. This is not about tweaking conversion rates. We're trying to grow businesses. So we had big discussions in the industry about the name conversion optimization. And I'm a big fan of the artist formerly known as Prince. So then Conversion Hotel became the conference formerly known as Conversion Hotel because of the identity crisis. But then after 5 years having that name, we all learned that conversion is still the name. So then we just removed formerly known, and it became the conference known as Conversion Hotel because this is how people want. So you can say Conversion Hotel. It's a luxury school camp for adults. Because school camp sounds like a bit cheap, but luxury school camp for adults, roller coaster with soulmates. I think the beauty of live events, especially what we learned since the pandemic, is that the reason why you go to the event is to meet people live and have conversations. And you can watch keynotes on YouTube. You can watch every keynote on YouTube. But it's different. So there will still be some keynotes, but we only do like 9 or 10 keynotes in 3 days. But these are the conversation starters. So you experience this keynote together, and then you have something to talk about. And that combination is magical. And of course, staying at the same location makes it a lot of fun. And really offering potential deeper connections.
Yeah, and it's very much like having sort of a captive audience, right? Where it's not like some conferences where they're in Vegas and the conference goes from 9 until 4 or 5, and then everyone, sometimes there's a party or people kind of go off on their own. But here, you're on an island and you're in the resort there, right? Like, where else are you going to go, right? You're all kind of there.
It's the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere else to go.
It's like the Alcatraz of conferences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Way.
It's the anti-bias festival. Yeah.
Alcatraz will be a wonderful location for Experimentation Island West. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I think that was actually in an episode of Silicon Valley. They host a.
Oh, that's right.
They host a some founders event on Alcatraz. They're like, it costs $2 million to rent the island, but hey, no one was leaving, which is great. Look, it's captive engaging. It sounds like you've got a wonderful community. Todd, you just said something though that I thought was really interesting, and that was perhaps honing in on the maybe somewhat reductiveness of the term CRO, and I'd love to maybe just double click into that and see, well, what do you mean? Like, what the world of, like you said, you come back to the vision, but why is that so reductive? Is it because to tell us more?
Can I return the question?
Oh, sure.
Because you guys are a little bit from outside the conversion optimization industry.
Yeah.
What means conversion optimization to you? If you hire an agency to do conversion optimization, or what are your expectations?
I have an answer to this because I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, since the past couple of years ago, because when I think about experimentation, I come at it from the kind of marketing analytics side, where the type of experimentation I do is, Google says its ROI is 2.3. Let's run an experiment, a holdout test or a geo experiment, something like that, to run a test to really understand the actual effectiveness or impact that marketing channel is having. So like, I think about it from that perspective. And in my mind, up until recently, my kind of the stereotype I had in my mind of the conversion experimentation group was that, oh yeah, they're the ones that do CRO. I didn't realize that I was 10 years behind the curve, that like, no, you're really thinking about decision science and thinking about experimentation broadly. But, from the outside looking in, I always thought it was like, oh yeah, the conversion rate optimization. They run tests between button colors and these stupid things that people cringe when you say it. But
I was gonna say, you really were stuck to like that was like when Optimizely came out. That was like the very first thing was like, make the button green.
Yeah.
And then that was like day one though, right? Because I've always thought about it through the lens of just friction mitigation. And I think in that sense, it can have a broader application, but at the same time, Tony mentioned the idea of like, well, if you work with an agency, I think the inherent nature often of packaging this in a maybe like somewhat of a menu-based way or a tangible outcome-based way, often then hones into just the website experience. And is that where it ends? Like, are you looking at, I guess, and I don't want to be reductive for CRO here, but like the CRO experience for ads, is it just friction minimization? Is that too broad of a term for this?
Yeah, for me, this is about growth engineering. This is actually growing businesses, and having an experimentation mindset to test and learn and grow faster, outperform the competition. So I think the trouble with conversion optimization is that it started to gain traction in like 2008, 2009, when Indeed Optimizely came to the marketplace and VWO came to the marketplace. Reach Interactive, which is now Convert.com. They all started at the same time because suddenly we were able to create a what you see is what you get editor, because DOM manipulation within the browser model was suddenly there. So you can just drag and drop stuff and change the button color indeed, or maybe I should switch the image from this e-commerce site with the button, or maybe I should add 4 USPs instead of 3. So all that small tweaking that was there and adopted by a lot of marketing agencies who are usually taking care of the ad spend. And then you had a landing page. A landing page was often on an external platform like Unbounce in those days, where you could run your test there without interfering with the IT of the business itself, because they were taking care of the product. So it started with marketing, with drag and drop tools, and then you had search engine optimization. So why not do conversion rate optimization as one of the many tricks in the toolbox from digital marketing teams, agencies, and so on. So that tweaking, playing around a little bit is still what's, if you talk to leaders, if they know the term at all, conversion optimization, they're like, oh, but that's the stuff in the end. That's like, well, once we are almost there, then we can tweak it a little bit more, and maybe AI can do this now. But then that's the trouble with the term conversion optimization from my perspective. But we're growing businesses. We're studying user behavior.
It's growth optimization, right? It's how do we optimize growth?
It's Silicon Valley. It's growth engineering. It used to be growth hacking at some point. That was kind of scary. So now it's growth engineering, and it's to create proper loops to grow the product even more. It's product-led growth. So it's drifted away from marketing a lot, but there's still marketing experimentation too, of course, because still you can make money if you have a big website with a lot of users. Getting a call to action that stands out more will still make you money.
It's funny because you mentioned SEO, and SEO is sort of taking this turn right now toward relevance engineering, and this idea of, at the end of the day, it's all social engineering. It is in a broader construct of how we optimizing toward outcomes that we are trying to achieve. And I'm wondering, just as you're talking, just that term though is so broad, growth optimization. Like, what's some examples of that? Like, are you going into companies and basically saying, we need to experiment with your pricing? That's actually, it doesn't matter what the landing page experience is for this. It doesn't matter it's the pricing. That's what we have to do. That's the number one barrier to entry you've got. Let's experiment with that. And now you've entered into a whole different conversation around essentially the financials and margin optimization of a business, and you have to start looking at ad spend, all these things. Is that something that you work on, or like what kind of examples or tangible examples would be a broadened horizon from CRO toward growth optimization?
I'm an experimentation coach, which means I mostly coach experimentation platform teams that are responsible for freeing experimentation inside an organization. And most large organizations now have lots of product teams that work on growth inside the organization, but everything they do should be validated. So most of these mature companies have a full setup of server-side feature flagging, and everything that's being shipped, that's being released, is being validated, or they get immediate feedback. And of course, then you learn that you should not just throw spaghetti to the wall. You should actually do proper research to come up with proper hypothesis, and actually have a framework to test and learn and grow the specific KPI you're responsible for. So if you are responsible for onboarding new users, hopefully you're also responsible for the quality of the new users, so you're not onboarding lots of people that you will just churn. Then you're going to be thinking about growth loops. Okay, what can we do? Can we do? Should we do like a free trial for this specific product, or what should we do after you sign up? What kind of experiments should we create so you keep engaged with the product? And then this is talking about growth loops, actually growing the business and not tweaking the button color for the sake of tweaking the button color. If it's part of the main hypothesis, we had a ghost button because on this stage we thought it was nice to have a ghost button. Fixed it also, but in the end, it's really about growing the business. Data-driven decision making. That's the term Kelly is always using. I think that's a wonderful term. Data-driven decision making.
Yeah. Well, and just as I'm thinking through this too, one of the pieces of this that I'm wondering about, like you mentioned, should we do a free trial, for example? And this one, for other of you who was jumping, the idea though of just out of the blue going, hey, let's do a free trial, is maybe antithetical to at least AB dogma over the years of whoa, no, let's try changing, let's do smaller changes. And what I've personally seen over the years, at least, is with small changes, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you test the same thing twice and it works once and doesn't work the other time. You're like, what did even stats say? And the question I have here is this then about breaking that mold and saying we're going to make bigger bets and we're going to experiment with bigger bets because we need to see a step change and not a gradual change?
Oh, so there's radical redesign and there's iterative testing.
Yeah.
And what's more important than either of those, frankly, is the research that backs them, and that it is user-led, product-led, and it's based on an understanding of both your product and your customers. So you need to you don't just do it on a whim. It needs to be based on research, and ideally there's a plan behind it. So as long as you have that, and I like to, I'm also a coach. I also do a lot of training, and one of the things that I help my clients build are learning plans. So, and sometimes they start with radical redesign, but normally they're iteration. And it typically depends on how much traffic they have and what tools they have at their disposal. Some companies don't have the traffic at their disposal that give them the luxury to do micro changes that are required for iterative testing. And if they don't, then there's also other types of research they can do, like surveys and usability testing. There's more than one way to learn than just the peak of causal inference, which we call A/B testing. So
I think it depends a lot on the state of the organization, maturity-wise, in their products and services. I often get these emails like, we saw you help Booking.com with a workshop or something. Oh, they're an amazing testing, high velocity website. We want to build this too in our organization. And then I have my first just introduction call just to get to know this organization, if I can help them at all. And then they turn out to be like a 50 people e-commerce company, just starting in a new niche, just gaining traction. Which means that what they want to apply should only be applied if there are like an 8,000 people company dominating their space, and they still want to tweak. Then they should become a high velocity tweaking everything organization. But before that, they have to take those bigger bets indeed, and try to invest more.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of how everyone always points at Uber because they turned off their Google branded CPC spend. And you're like, yeah, they can do it because they're Uber. Everyone knows Uber. They've got this massive brand power. It doesn't actually matter. But you, company no one's ever heard of, I wouldn't do that. I think it's a very high risk activity for you versus them, and just the way that they'll iterate. So that's really interesting. Sorry, Jim. I feel like I'm dominating.
No,
jump in, please.
The thing that's been kind of swirling in my head as we've been talking is, like I'm wondering how many people come to you, Tone and Kelly, and say, "Hey, we want you to help us improve our conversion on our website, or improve." So, like what's the kind of perspective that they're coming to you from versus like you could think of it more as very generally, like we've been talking about, is we help you answer critical questions that are valuable for you, right? Because that's what it boils down to. It's like, I'm running a business. I have to make a decision about something, but I need, I don't know how to make this decision. I'm not, I need more data to say which is the better solution. And that could be anything from, the stupid example, like I mentioned, like button color on the website, or it could be changes to the supply chain, or it could be new partnerships. It could be, changes to the pricing. It could be a number of things, right? But it all boils down to, we use science to help make decisions, which, Kelly, there was an article that you had the perfect quote for me, which is kind of putting all of this into perspective for me, which is, it's a short quote. I'll read it here. So you said, "I'm also excited that the field finally realizes there's more to experimentation than conversion rate optimization," exactly what we're talking about. "I've been calling it decision science for years, and it seems to finally be taking hold in some small way. I hope that in 5 or maybe 10 years, we'll all call it that. Our field isn't just about testing, it's about using science to make better decisions with data." I don't know that there's a question in there, but
I will say that most of my work is in helping my clients make better decisions, but it is about building process. It's about actually building up orgs. Meaning helping to redesign their organization, like deciding what is the best organizational design for them, around where experimentation should sit, because often they bring me in because their program has stagnated. They have me do a audit or a current state assessment to figure out, is it their platform? Is it skills? Is it, what do they need to move? Who owns experimentation? Do they need to do hiring or skills training? And often it's, whoever owns experimentation, it needs to move, or something like that. And we figure that out through the audit. Or we need to build a new process, or very rarely it is the platform. They always think it's the platform. It's very rarely the platform, but sometimes it is. And then we'll do a vendor evaluation and help them pick a new platform. But that's very common.
Yeah, there is a nice experimentation culture award in your background, Kelly. It's about the people. It's the people. It's always the people. And it's building experimentation culture. Democratization of decision making, but also for leadership, letting go of top-down decision making, and handing responsibility to the teams to make decisions. And if you have a proper structure set up where you make data-driven decisions, then you indeed can let go of that decision making, and let go of the zebra inside you, which is also at that experimentation culture award, because that's a zero evidence but really arrogant person. And I also see a hippo next to the whiskey, I think, over there. Highest paid person's opinion. We have people like that, and that's something you want to. That takes time. Embedding a new platform, that's configuration. That takes some time, but indeed, change management, changing people, that takes way more time. So in that, most often when I'm asked to help out, it's because it's stagnated somewhere. The platform team It's a wonderful platform. They have 100 product teams, but only 10 product teams are using it.
Yeah.
And they can't convince the other ones to start using it. Help. Or all the teams are using it, but the KPIs are not moving at all. And they're testing a lot and they're trying, but we're not moving the needle. What's happening here? And then you will find out that they're just shooting from the hip and don't do proper research. There's always something stagnating. And then it's always good to have someone from the outside. And it doesn't have to be Kelly or me. It can be anyone else, of course. But it always helps to have someone from the outside to look at your organization. What's happening? Okay, let's push it gently over here.
Interesting. I might sound like a bit of a heretic as I ask this. My background, though, is in psychology and statistics, and in recent years there have been challenges brought up within the psychology community about replicability, and this being just we have these things in the past, these experiments, very very famous ones. I mean, yes, you with like the Stanford prison experiment and things where everyone's like, you created that, like that was there's so many reasons why that cannot be replicated. But then there are other ones, like the Stanford marshmallow experiment. Apparently, it's all going on at Stanford, where they talk about delayed gratification and that being I'm like, oh yeah, it's all true. And you're like, it's not. It cannot be repeated. And truthfully, I've done some experiments in the past where this has been true, and then we said, well, we should just test it again, and we tested it again, and it can't be repeated. And both are stat sig. And I'm just wondering, what is the thought or the culture around that? Because there is a point where you're like, yes, we're succeeding with these experiments, but if they're not consistently true, because frankly, humans are changing, the web is changing, the internet is changing. Things, when you test button colors back in the day, it's like, honestly, it doesn't even matter anymore because everyone's doing like autocomplete on the form anyway. It's like, how do you reckon with that, the replicability problem?
We're in business, not in science. I think that's number one. And indeed, also in business, there is a replication crisis because you know statistics because you studied consumer psychology. The level we're testing at, the statistic we're trying to get at, the p-value we're aiming at, for most companies is only 0.1, 90% significance, which means lots of false positives. But the alternative, if you are not testing, it means you're shipping in the blind. And so at least run that experiment, validate what you're shipping. So if you're hurting the business and losing money, at least you're not shipping it. But definitely some of the wins that seem wins will definitely be a false positive. And then the big question is, should you retest? Should you waste the resources on trying to replicate to really learn if this is actually true? Yes, if it's a logo redesign, like the full company restyle, everything, all the office buildings will be changed, all the legal stuff and so on, then maybe run more than one experiment. If it's just a tweak somewhere on a product page.
If it's in the cart or if it's a logo redesign, if it's really important to your bottom line, then replicate.
So Cracker Barrel
that hard. Yes.
did
a
little bit.
Yes.
But that's like, how do you test the logo? Is it just like user studies? You go, do you like this logo? Because anytime I think about that, I go, well, you put it in a little lab environment here in a form, and I'm looking at it without the context of everything else. And then when I see it on the restaurant or I see it somewhere, like it's just a different experience unless you've gone all the way with it. How do you test things like that?
Yeah, there are lots and lots of ways to test sentiment impacts of changing things like logos. I mean, that's been around since before we had digital experimentation. They've been doing that forever. So that's not new. Being able to do that in digital, we can just do it faster and with steroids. And so like that's actually easier today, much easier.
So I think
of course,
go ahead.
You won't go to a full redesign. You're not going to redesign the whole website in a new style, new logo, and then do a split test on that.
No,
you will do some fake door testing. Leave out the logo on the website. Doesn't make a difference at all if there's a logo or not. Maybe if you're Uber, it doesn't matter at all because people know you're at Uber. And maybe try a small sample and just use different colors that are like totally the opposite from the current company. What happens to your conversion rate? What happens to the signups? And so, so you can get some proof. And this is about making better decisions. we're not in the field of making the best decision. Because if we want to make the best decision, then we actually are into science, and then we're not going to be rich. So we need to speed up and take some risk along the way, but we need to understand where we can take more risk and where we should take less risk.
I feel like this is a great segue into the unavoidable topic of AI and experimentation, right? We were talking about
There we need to slow down, Jim.
yeah, well, exactly, right. Well, like we talk about like testing a logo design. Like you could do like small group surveys, you could do like in-person feedback, things like that. But like now we have synthetic data, and we have several companies that I know of that are doing sort of synthetic personas, where you can basically do market research, consumer research with people, with AIs, and get fairly similar results as if you would have had, an in-person focus group. So I'm wondering, how are you seeing these types of tools? How are you seeing sort of the use of AI in testing or in experimentation? What different angles is that starting to come into play?
Shall we first tackle the synthetic users?
Yes.
I think synthetic users are a wonderful opportunity to pre-test the variations you're building. And you're probably building the variations of your hypothesis with AI already, design and copy and code, so you can pre-validate them. So the better ones come up. But so far in testing actual humans, A/B testing compared to synthetic user testing, some simple things indeed are quite okay as an outcome, but once it becomes bigger changes, especially copywriting, I'm seeing synthetic users still being off. But I will always validate once you ship to actual humans.
Mm-hmm.
But for pre-validation, and maybe that it's becoming better and better because the growth is kind of fast with all these AI things. So it probably becomes better and better. But still, when implementing tests on actual humans, if you don't have the users, if you just say your startup with only your uncle and your niece as the first clients, then you have to trust synthetic users, take more risk.
Yeah.
I had a similar, so I'm a startup. I have lack of resources, so I did something similar. LinkedIn has always given out like, here's $500 of ad credits for LinkedIn, and I'm like, okay, sure. So I took advantage of it, and I like, oh, now I have to create some ads for LinkedIn, and like I don't have a designer or anyone, a copywriter, so I just obviously went to ChatGPT, had it create some ads, and then I created some personas on ChatGPT and had it score the ads, and then iterated back and forth a few times. And within like a couple of hours, I had 4 or 5 different designs, running on LinkedIn. And it was interesting because I think like you said, Ton, like certain simple things, it gets in the ballpark. It gets pretty directionally accurate. And it did. Like the ads that it said would perform the best actually did perform the best with humans. But use with caution, I guess, is the thing for people to, to take in mind here, right? If you're making a decision that's going to either cost $1 million or benefit you $1 million, that's maybe don't just, wing it with some ChatGPT. But I don't know what you're thinking.
We're still waiting for the feedback from the larger experimentation organizations like Microsoft, like Amazon, like Booking. Because I think the interesting part is that productivity has gone up a lot with LLMs, like coding, designing, copywriting, and we still have the human in the loop. So the engineers or the developers became code reviewers instead of coders, and the designers became design reviewers. But we still have the human in the loop before we push something out. It will be really fascinating to see.
Was that the coder is reviewing, the designer is reviewing. And what I've seen is the problem when somebody who is not a coder is reviewing. Somebody who is not a designer is reviewing a design. And then you get junk code and junk design. And I've seen a lot of that. So the vibe coding being done by somebody without the skill to review the code. That is dangerous.
I'm still waiting for the moment when companies like Amazon are pushing this without validation by humans, So just
Yes.
keep on pushing those designs and experiments and copywriting to see, because then it can be fully automated, to see what the outcome is. Because maybe your winning percentage is a little bit lower, but if it's costing no labor, but just subscriptions to all sorts of tools, can it make the company grow faster? You still need to validation with the actual users, but it will be interesting to see what the difference is between a machine and a good team getting help from machines. But it probably will take some time before we are there, but it definitely speeds up productivity a lot.
I'm rooting for Team Human. I want Team Human to win. I want the hybrid team of human and machines to win. But
I like the Copilot as well. And I worry a little bit. I just finished yesterday in Pirate Bay. And so I'm a little worried about the fact that Team Human, currently working as Copilot, is actually training the model to replace the human. So I am a little...
And we're not talking about organizations applying AI, LLMs, machine learning. Is it actual AI, LLMs? But what about the user? What about the consumer? When did we start using AI agents to make buying decisions? Or, of course, we now have this hybrid state of ChatGPT acting as a browser and helping you out. But at some point, people will start talking to their phones or whatever device they are creating, and just order their new pair of whatever branded shoes.
Yeah.
Will that show up in your data at all? Can you experiment on that? Of course, you will be able to run experiments, but it will probably become messier with not being the owner of the data, like marketplaces currently already. But I'm really curious to see how fast that will speed up. Is it only like a small, early moving group of people that will do this for the next 5 to 10 years? When does it become a big thing? Will it ever become a big thing?
Not far away. I had to test it for the panel that I had on Friday for the TLC. And at least in the US market, I don't think it's 5 years away. I think it's this shopping season through next year. And I think in the next year, I think it will be the predominant use case for shopping.
This is I've been framing this concept as the spectrum of agentic deference, and that is the degree to which a consumer is willing to cede decision-making power. To the extent, though, that we go 1 year, 5 years, I struggle with this chasm crossing moment about outright autonomy being deferred to the agentic systems outside of maybe like I had a Walmart click and collect order where they had 30 products in there, and they trade out like 5 of them, and I'm like, I'm not going through every single one. I'm not going to sit here while the person's shopping to tell you which item I want. If you can best predict that next item, though, that's a really great use case for the agentic decisioning. But I, again, am not going to say I need groceries, and then it will come and do it. I know that we're also like, just like when the internet started, I was like, no one's going to buy a car on the internet. It's like, they will. But there's still like that, that took years, and it took 20 years to do that, right? I often think about like how much this is speeding up, and also how much it is just the early adopters getting so far ahead of this play, and no one is caught up. And so as soon as like I hear it from my wife and her friends that they're doing this stuff, I'll go, okay, it's going there. But at least, I mean, when I've used Atlas, it is just an LLM strapped on to a browser. The only one that I thought was any good was Comet from Perplexity, because that could actually handle agentic processes on my behalf, like fill out forms and so forth. And that was the big question I was going to have here, and that is the degree to which companies need to be doing. I've been calling this the agentic gap audit, which is essentially run your website through, like have agents try and complete tasks on your website and see where they're stalling out. Like, is that again, I don't want to be reductive and call it CRO, but is that the newest form of CRO, is agentic CRO?
Oh, geez.
Interesting.
I got an email this morning that Comet is now free and available for everyone.
Yes.
So they saw what OpenAI did, and they said, okay, ours is free now too.
Yeah, but no one's using Perplexity in general anyway.
Right.
I do lots of speaking across the country, and I always ask who here is using Perplexity, and no one raises their hand. Anyway, Turn. As you I think you were diving in. Yeah.
I just organized a small gathering with 20 people in Portugal about talking about the future of experimentation. So no speakers, just 2 days of deep diving. Also with Sani from No X Podcast, which was on your show also before. So a couple of bright people from Europe, then discussing about the future of experimentation. And I think our takeaway was the future experimentation becomes more messy. So the data quality is the big issue. You have less data and not being on data, but still having the mindset of an experimenter, someone who's not afraid to fail, who's willing to try out and learn, will be ahead of this specific curve. And just optimizing for agentic optimization, or whatever you wanna call this, we're definitely playing with this. And this is why we also should have all these meetups, not too big, just smaller meetups where we come together and share what we worked on. Because talking to you, Simon, you probably have tried some stuff. It's really interesting that I haven't looked into. So let's come together. Show me what you do, and I'll show you some stuff I was working on.
Absolutely.
This is how we learn, and I think it's fascinating. I'm really happy that I was alive at the .com boom and saw that from first hand.
Yeah.
And this feels like 10 times the .com boom. It's wow. I'm really happy that I'm able to go through this and be old enough to stop working by the time the robots have taken over.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the new industrial age in terms of the profound shift that we're witnessing here. It is such an interesting moment though to think about that. Just the agent piece in general and what that does mean for us moving forward. In fact, one of the things I've been thinking about, and I'd love your take, is there a point? Not saying we abandon experiments, because I think it's a misrepresentation, but is there a point where we just move from experiments to simulations? And there's an episode of Black Mirror with two people going on a date, and the whole thing follows them through their entire life, and they get married, and And at the end of the episode, it's because it's a dating app, and it finds out that they are actually a match. And the avatars, in theory, they don't have consciousness, so they didn't go through this experience, but it felt real. And when I think about Google Ads in particular, when I talk to the engineers over there, we talk a lot about simulation prior to ad display. And I think about simulation here and go, is it just that there is no unified experience? It is that it is truly a simulated experience that Amazon will give me. They'll have 1,000 simulations they run on Simon, and they go, this is the one he's most likely to react to. Is that where we get to?
Yeah, I think the main issue here is still that we don't have enough energy to make it happen for everyone. So big a difference between the rich part of the world and the less rich part of the world also probably. Yes. But it's interesting because I'm now thinking, oh my God, I need to start a dating app company where I get all your personal information
Exactly.
from other ones, do all these simulations, and I need to make that specific match because we have the computing power to do so nowadays. But only for a couple of people, not for the whole world. So then that's going to be expensive. If you're able to pay $1 million to my app, then I can do that for you.
Well, it's short-term expensive, right? Though, because when I think about the cost of compute and things like it will decrease, we will invest in more power sources. This is the great forcing function of this moment in time. But it is interesting. Just like I was chatting with an engineer at Meta about their glasses, and I was like, when can I put this in my eyeball? When can I make this a lens? Like, we actually have the technology now where it could go in there. The problem is heat diffusion. We cannot escape the heat fast enough. It will boil your eyeball. And I look at this in the same way. It's like, we actually have the power and technology. So we actually have the technology now and the capability now. We just don't have the power. And so that becomes the sort of physics constraint of all of this, which is a particularly interesting one to hit into. And I don't know, maybe we'll see variation over time. Sorry, I'm such a tinfoil hack guy today. I'm just going way off piste.
Next episode, we will talk about Dyson spheres, but until then,
it's all experimentation.
Exactly.
It's all is. So we need to leave our listeners with an incremental insight. Kelly, Ton, what's one takeaway, some important podcast or article that you'd like to leave our audience with, something that they can get advantage of right today?
Okay, so for me, I didn't know you all had just recently talked to Sonny, but that's okay. I still will leave you, everybody, with the No Hacks podcast, because Sonny is talking to everybody about, talking about AI right now. He's talking to really important people about really important stuff. So No Hacks podcast.
Yeah, his most recent episode was amazing. So we'll definitely have links in the show notes for those.
Yep.
And Ton, how about you?
Yeah. Well, we are for years already in a digital and technological revolution, and even with AI more. but I think the most important part is people. So I'm also in Team Human, Jim, and because you cannot make this happen in organizations without a proper culture. So this is why we once founded the Experimentation Culture Award, which can be found on experimentationcultureawards.com. It has all the episodes from the past 6 years where you can see interviews with like 20 organizations per year on how they're growing experimentation in their organization. And they're all are sharing their failures and successes on how to grow that specific culture. And that's people. That's not about the platform, people.
Love it.
Excellent.
Well, as we conclude today, and as we think about everything that we've discussed, I think one of the big things is if folks are sitting out there and they are still thinking about CRO really through the lens of 2012 and changing the colors of buttons, and they haven't invested in this novel idea, then maybe it's time to stop being the control and start being the variant as they prepare to measure up.